Evening, everybody. So, let's start with our motivation. Again, really appreciating the time that we have in our lives, that even today we had so much time to practice the Dharma. Whether we practice or not is another issue. Whether we are mindful and have introspective alertness is another issue. But the time is there. And so, at least seeing that there's always the time to practice, and that that time is decreasing moment by moment as we age and approach death, then let's really seize the moment and have a strong aspiration to make our lives meaningful and to really transform our minds while we have the opportunity to do that. And the best way to transform them is by cultivating the bodhicitta, the loving, compassionate, altruistic intention, seeking to develop our own potentials completely in order to repay the kindness that other living beings have shown us in this life and previous lives, and that they will continue to show us. I was thinking about the guys on the crew building Chenrezig Hall, and they're here from 7 o'clock in the morning until, or sometimes 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening, their time, and they're working out in the cold all day. And so most of their day is taken up with either driving here, working, driving home, getting home. They're probably really tired. They just want to be warm, have something to eat, and then they go to sleep. And I was thinking, I hope they enjoy their work, because they don't have a lot of time outside of work, and they're working just to get the money to have the food and the shelter and the clothing and the medicines to stay alive. And I thought of us sitting here, with so much time, not working out in the cold, having time to chat and talk and meditate and study, and and how much free time we have in our lives to do what we want. I mean, our whole life, this kind of lifestyle, is crafted to be able to do what we want, which is to study and practice. And here we have this perfect opportunity right here. It's really kind of amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And the evening comes and we're not freezing cold. We're not exhausted from working outdoors all day. Yeah. We didn't sit in our truck trying to get warm for lunch. We had a nice lunch all together. It's really amazing. So we have a responsibility to the people who enable us to live like this. Yeah. And that is to really study and practice as best as we can. And if we don't do that, then we should join the crew. Yeah? So, yeah, we really have to thank all the people who enable us to have this opportunity. And I'm sure the guys some mornings wake up and go, I don't feel like going to work today. Or I have a headache, or my stomach doesn't feel well. But they're here every day, aren't they? I don't remember any of them calling in sick.
Alan came one day and got sent home after half a day.
Okay, so he came and he was sick, and George sent him home.
Jeremiah's.
Yeah, Jeremiah's. But you know, the idea is how many others are here not feeling well, feeling tired, feeling whatever it is, but they still come. And they work, 8-9 hour days outside in the cold. Yeah. So it's really something to think about, what they're doing and what they're doing for us, so that Chenrezig Hall is here. And then all the people who are donating the money to build Chenrezig Hall. None of us went out and worked. Yeah. So, we're really, really dependent on the kindness and generosity of others. It's really something to bring into our hearts. And so to appreciate all these people who come here. Yeah, and people who come for retreats, or come to visit for a day, or come to offer service, or come to work, to really appreciate how much they're helping us. And the whole crew, they're not Buddhists, and yet they're helping in the spread of the Dharma. And so later on this lives, or next lives, future lives, somehow through our karmic connection with them, may we be able to benefit them and actually lead them in the path. But if we're going to be able to benefit them and lead them in the path, then we better practice now and study well now. Otherwise, we're just using up our good karma and have nothing to offer them in return, which would be a real loss, for them and for us. Okay. So, yeah?
Craig told me today this is the job of a lifetime.
Craig said that this is the job of a lifetime? Wow, did he explain that anymore?
Well, it's a bit of a story. I don't know if this is the right time.
Can you abbreviate it?
I'll abbreviate it. He's actually leaving for Costa Rica a week from Friday, because this was a holiday that was planned before he got the job. And he said, I can't believe it. I'm going on this trip of a lifetime, which was planned, and then I got this job of a lifetime. And he said, I love working here.
Wow.
And Larry has said that. Those two for sure.
Yeah. I'm glad they've said that they like working here. How long is he going to be away?
5 weeks.
5 weeks, wow. What are we going to do without him?
Larry will take over.
Yeah, but
they have another employee starting soon.
Yeah, but Craig's really good.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. So, okay. So last week, I asked you, your homework assignment was to be aware of when you are having direct sense perceptions, and when you are having conceptual thoughts, whatever kind of conceptual thoughts you were having. Okay? And this exercise relates very much to the retreat we'll be doing on the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Because, during the retreat, we're going to have to discriminate what is a direct sense perception, what actually is a feeling, and what are my thoughts about all these kinds of things. Because I think now we really aren't very aware of those things, and we often think that our thoughts are the direct sense perception. So let me ask you a question. How do you know when you're tired? Yeah?
I actually, you've helped me with this. I actually have physical things that I relate to tiredness. You know, like physical sensations.
So what are those physical sensations?
Sometimes there'll be like a feeling around my eyes, you know, like a heaviness around the eyes, things like that.
Okay. How about other people? How do you know you're tired? What are the physical sensations that you have?
Physical. For me, I feel like my body feels heavier.
Your body feeling heavier, I mean, what is the physical sensation?
So I think it's sort of like this feeling like the physical sensation.
Yeah. First of all, what sense is it that you're feeling?
Tactile.
Tactile. Okay. And in what part of your body?
I feel like it's muscles. Muscles.
Muscles. So this muscle over here feels heavy? How does a muscle feel heavy?
I think
Do you feel it in your neck when you're tired? Where do you feel? What muscles are it?
I feel it maybe on my arms and my legs.
Uh-huh. Okay. And what does tired feel like in your arms and your legs?
Like the sensation. That's what you're...
Yeah. I mean, if my arm's lying here, what's the sensation of tired? If you're saying it's here, you feel it in your arms and your legs. So what's the sensation? And why, if my arm is resting here, does my arm feel tired? What's the sensation of tired?
Well, I don't know about that, but I can talk about my experience. What it is for me is it's more energetic.
Energetic?
Yes, it's there's kind of a blurry tightness, and I had an experience once.
Where? I'm just talking.
It's more around here.
So you're feeling around here, but you don't have sensory perceptions around here.
Yes, I do.
Oh, you have nerve endings out here?
Well, I'm not talking about nerves. I'm talking about energy.
Yeah, but I want to know just raw sense data that we're getting through our 5 senses. That's the question here.
Can be headache,
What is a headache?
tactile.
Yeah, but what is the sensation and exactly where is it? So first of all, does a headache always mean you're tired? No. Okay.
It's usually an ache. It's usually a tightness and ache in the muscles around my eyes.
Okay, so some tightness or ache there. It's interesting that we call that sensation tired, or some sensation in our arms tired. So even if you're didn't do anything physical during the day. Tired shows up in your arms and legs?
Well, maybe not just my arms and my legs. I think it's more that my
Does your tush feel tired? The muscles in your tush?
Sometimes my throat gets a little sore. Sometimes when I'm trying to do things, it's hard to have the feeling. That's a hard one to describe. The less energy. That's the one that's hard to describe.
But that's the thing is, what does less energy feel like?
Yes.
What is the sense perception of less energy? Where is it happening in your body, and what exactly does it feel like?
Yeah, it's not happening in your body.
So your body's tired, but the tiredness isn't in your body.
I think it's like
Yeah?
It has nothing to do with our
No.
body itself. Not with the body, it has to do something with our thoughts.
Ah, okay. So what do you think? What is? How do you know you're tired by what you're, according to what you're thinking?
I think it's a kind of overloading of many sensual impressions and many thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of habituation.
So it's an overload of sensory things and an overload of thoughts. And what does that feel like? How do you know when you've had that?
That there's a change in how do I think, for example, that I can't think clearly maybe.
Okay, so you can't think clearly.
You have tons of thoughts.
Yeah.
So when you're tired, you have a lot of thoughts?
Well, that's what kind of leads you.
I can't control them.
Oh, some people are saying yes, some people are saying no.
Yeah, okay.
If you're tired, how can you have a lot of thoughts?
I think that's what leads you there.
Okay, that might be the cause, yeah?
I just want to read what viewers were saying. So John Minhofer is saying, when I'm tired, my eyelids sag and my thoughts become very drowsy and start to wander. When my thoughts turn to a topic that grabs my attention, often my tiredness dissipates. It's much more a mental factor than any discernible physical feeling. Jonathan is saying, I start to fall asleep, and also it's lack of attention, lack of clarity, and a painful feeling as well.
Okay. This is interesting from what the people are saying. They're describing it much more in terms of mental. You know?
Right.
Kind
But
of-
you were asking
or-
about the physical sensation.
Yeah, because we often think my body's tired. I've got to go to sleep because my body's tired.
Right.
You know? People say, I'm exhausted, meaning my body is tired. But, you know, how tired is our body, and does the tiredness happen in the mind? And we've all had the experience that John's talking about of you're kind of bored, so you say, I'm tired. But as soon as there's something that catches your attention, you're no longer bored. And even that sensation in your eyelids is gone.
The mind is very powerful.
The mind's quite powerful. Yeah?
Well, I think there's body fatigue and then there's mental fatigue. I
Okay.
think we really mix the two. I mix the two. But if it's truly physical fatigue, then my ability to stand up or to continue ceases. I have to sit down or lie down because I can't.
Okay. So you're saying there's mental fatigue and physical fatigue, and when it's genuine physical fatigue, then your muscles are so weak that you can't stand up and you have to sit down or lie down.
But I think that more often it's mental fatigue.
More often it's mental fatigue, yeah. And yet we so often express it as physical fatigue, don't we? And yet, as soon as there's something that's interesting, the mental fatigue is gone. It's so strange how we are, isn't it? So it's very interesting. You know, this is just one exercise. Just really observe our own experience. And at what point does the thought, I'm tired, arise? And what makes that thought arise? Is it a sensation here? Is it boredom in the mind? Is it looking at the clock and then thinking, I must be tired? Is it looking at the daylight and thinking, I must be tired? Yeah? So, you know, this is a very interesting thing, because those thoughts are what? Are they direct perception? No. Yeah, they're conceptual thoughts, aren't they? Very different from actual, you know, sensory data that we get. Yeah?
And also now with my mom's level of dementia,
Mm-hmm.
the minute it gets dark, she thinks it's time to go to bed.
Ah, okay. So your mom does it, you know, the demented mind. As soon as it's dark, it's time to go to bed. Yeah. Whether the body's tired or not, whether the mind is tired or not. So the power of the thought saying, you know, according to a visual data of darkness, perceiving darkness, then the thought comes, I'm tired, I've got to go to bed. And that thought runs the show. Yeah.
And if you can keep your mind joyful, you won't be so tired.
Yeah, definitely. If your mind is joyful, you're not so tired. I think we all know that when we're feeling down, boy, we just want to go to sleep, don't we? I think that's also not so much because we're tired, but because of who knows what else is going on. Yeah. So, what are some other things where you can see the difference between sense data and conception?
Hunger.
Yeah, like what? What's the difference with
Like-
hunger?
Like I walk upstairs to go to the library and I smell cookies and I'm hungry.
So you walk up to go to the library, it's just after breakfast, you smell cookies, and you're hungry. How do you know you're hungry? You're not hungry. It's the thought saying, I'm hungry.
Right. It's this familiarity with the pleasure that comes with eating.
Yeah, but it's interesting, it comes out as I'm hungry instead of I want to eat. Because I want to eat and I'm hungry are two different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, in that situation, the real thing is I want to eat.
Right.
Yeah. But we say, I'm hungry.
Right.
And do you check your stomach? Does your stomach have the feeling of hunger?
Yeah, for sure I check and I'm like, you are joking around.
So you actually ask your stomach if it's hungry?
Well, no, if once I start going with that, I say like, yeah, I guess I do kind of ask. I'm like, really? Are you hungry for a cracker? You know, yeah, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to ask ourselves, how do I know I'm hungry?
And stomach growls.
Yeah. So it's stomach growling. But every time your stomach growls, do you necessarily feel hungry?
No.
Yeah. I know sometimes my stomach growls and I don't feel hungry. Yeah. So what is that feeling of hunger? And what is the difference between the feeling of hunger and the thought, I'm hungry? Yeah. And how many times do we have the thought, I'm hungry, when if we actually check the physical reality, there's no physical sensation of I'm hungry.
A lot.
Yeah, it's more a mental mind of attachment saying, I want to eat, I want pleasure, isn't it? Yeah.
But sometimes the opposite is true.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you are hungry, but your mind is saying, no, I don't feel like eating.
Yeah, sometimes that's true too. Your body's saying, I'm hungry, and your mind is saying, oh, I'm in the middle of doing something really interesting, be quiet. I don't want to hear about hunger right now.
And the mind usually wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's quite interesting to observe these kinds of things. Yeah. And when somebody says to you, why are you late?
What?
Why are you late? With that voice. Why are you late? Okay. So what is the sensory? What sense consciousness?
Hearing.
Hearing. Okay. Auditory consciousness. And what are you hearing?
Sound waves.
You're hearing criticism.
Oh, really?
Well, let me rephrase that. You're hearing the sound, but automatically me would be defensive. I'm hearing criticism. That would be me.
Okay, but let's go back to the sensory data. What are you hearing?
Sound.
Sounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is the thing of they're criticizing me? What's that?
That's a thought.
That's a thought. Does that thought exist in that sound?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
It's not there.
Yeah. It's not there in the sound. If somebody said, oh, why are you late? And then somebody else says, why are you late? Then you have two different conceptual thoughts afterwards, don't you? Mm-hmm. When somebody says, oh, why are you late? What do you think?
They care about me.
They care about me. Why are you late?
They don't care. They're irritated.
They're irritated. And they don't care. Okay. In both instances, we heard sounds. Okay. But what is it that evokes our response? Is it the sound or is it the thought? It's the thought. It's our thought, isn't it? And that thought does not exist in that sound. The thought and the sound are two different things, aren't they? Yeah, very, very different things. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very interesting. And to also ask ourselves, why, when somebody says, oh, why are you late? Why do I generate the thought they care about me from that sound? And when somebody says, why are you late? I generate the thought that they're irritated and don't care about me. Yeah. Why? What is it that makes me respond differently?
Past.
Past what?
Past actions. Normally you associate what you hear with what has happened before.
Okay.
So before, if somebody says, "Oh, why are you late?" Really nice, like, then it was normally an interest in you. Whereas the other one, it's past
okay. It's past association. So we're bringing something from the past and projecting it onto the present sound.
Yes.
But it's also that we really believe that what happened in the past is happening now.
We're kind of confusing what happened in the past with what's
Right.
happening now, aren't we? Yeah, because we don't really know what the other person's motivation is.
But we have our own experience of when we're angry, we aren't caring. about others, and when we have concern, you care.
Yeah, yeah, we know that when we're angry, but how does that relate to the sound?
It doesn't. Well, that's our interpretation of the song.
Yeah, I mean, it's our interpretation of the sound that had something to do with previous conditioning, that when we heard certain sounds, then what followed afterwards maybe was unpleasant. When we heard other sounds, what followed after them was something pleasant.
Or it was also our responses, the way we would normally respond to somebody. You know, if someone was late, we'd go, we didn't care, why are you late?
Oh, okay. So you're saying we're looking at ourselves, and how if we're irritated, then we say, why are you late?
Yes.
Okay. And so projecting what we do onto them. Yeah. And then, why, if we have the thought, they're irritated, why do we get angry?
What we're supposed to do. It's like a scene. It's like playing a scene over and over, and we learn. I was thinking, when you asked the first question, we've learned those reactions. Mm-hmm. If someone sounds rare, then we do this, and then they do that, and then they do this. It's almost like we don't know how to do something.
Yeah.
Seeds get
Huh?
the seeds that we've planted get watered.
Yeah, so certain seeds, you know.
The way it's supposed to go, A and B and C and D.
So we just, we hear a certain sound, we generate a certain thought, we respond in a certain way.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, isn't it?
We're tired.
Yeah.
Put the antidote to work.
Gotcha? You have something?
Tracy's saying we're conditioned both as a society and as individuals to react with a certain input and behavior.
Yeah, so we are very much conditioned by, individual conditioning, societal conditioning. And yet at the time that is happening, and you're having hurt feelings or getting angry, are you saying I'm conditioned by the past? No. What are you saying to yourself?
It's not fair.
Not fair.
What's going on with them?
I'm right.
Yeah.
What I'm perceiving is right. Yeah. My interpretation, based on a little bit of sense data, is the correct interpretation. And the way I'm responding emotionally is the only possible response to have. Okay. So you see how samsara keeps us bound? We're really bound.
I think it's even more complicated than that, because I think that our perception is not accurate either. I've proven that to myself with listening to messages on my answering machine.
Ah.
This is where I first started doubting perception, because I would be in a certain state of mind, I'd hear the message, and I'd have a certain reaction, and then I'd hear the same message later, and I'd be in a different state of mind, and I'd have a completely different interpretation of it.
Yeah, okay, this is good. So, listening to messages on your answering machine, yeah. When you're in one state of mind and you listen to the message,
I perceive
yeah,
one,
the sound is the same.
but I perceive the sound even differently.
Yeah. Well, are you really hearing the sound?
Interpret it, I guess, differently.
The sound you're hearing when you're in a bad mood and when you're in a good mood is the same sound.
Hearing is the same, but I don't know where the perception goes, where it goes to hearing, where it goes to interpretation.
Yeah, see, this is it. Because we think, oh, I'm hearing, that's the same thing. They're aggravated, I can hear it, it's in their voice. Actually, we're just hearing tones and pitches and everything like that. And so it's like the first kind of interpretation that we're doing, saying, oh, they're mad at me, or they're aggravated, or whatever it is, I'm done for. Yeah, but how interesting it is, you say, like you wait until the next morning and you listen to the same message. The sound is exactly the same.
I've done that with your teachings. I've sat here, listened to you teach, watched my reaction, and then I've gone back and listened to them, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm sure many people have had that. Even, you hear the exact same sound. And doing this with a tape recorder is really good because you can see how stuck we get in our own experience. Yeah, and can't move out of it because we think that sound is that thing, not realizing it's our thought.
You're not even actually hearing.
And
I think sometimes you're actually not even hearing because you're maybe not, your attention isn't that much on the sound. Already in your
sometimes, it's true. Sometimes we may have the idea, oh, somebody is going to be mad at me, and as soon as we hear their voice on the phone, we're not really even listening to what they're saying. We're already thinking they're mad at me. Okay, but you see how we're getting we can't tell the difference between the sense perception and the thought, and we're getting them completely confused. And the thought is something we're putting on that's coming from us. Yeah.
That's exactly the John Minhofer has a question. One question I had from last week, as I was trying to ascertain direct sense perception, is whether this is so subtle that we don't recognize that perception, or whether we should be able to recognize that before the labeling conceptual thought arises.
Okay, so I don't think sense perception is so subtle. Recognizing it requires some mindfulness and introspective awareness. And recognizing when the sense perception ends and when the thoughts begin, that requires a lot of mindfulness and introspective awareness. But that doesn't take anything. That's just, it's going in your ears. Okay, when you look at this color, yeah, you're just seeing that color, that's it. Or you smell a certain sound, then your mind labels, oh, that's cookies. And then you go in there and you find out it's granola.
that was every time.
Yeah, and you go, oh. I thought it was cookies. Yeah. So there you had a sense data from, here. You labeled it incorrectly, developed certain expectations, and then the whole thing crashed when you realized that your conceptual imputation was incorrect. Yeah. That's a quick time of realizing our conceptual imputation was incorrect. Sometimes it takes us years. Yeah. Okay, so really keep on with this exercise as you're going through the day of, what is a sensory perception and what is, a thought that I have. Okay. And if it is a sensory perception, tune in on the sensory perception and say exactly where is it? And exactly what does it feel like? Because we so quickly go from whatever sense perception we have to I'm tired, that when I said, how do you know you're tired? Everybody was kind of puzzled. It's like we never thought about it because we so quickly go to the thought. And then everything that follows from there. Okay? So similarly, when you're sitting in the hall, and you feel like moving, stop and say, why do I feel like moving? What is the sense data that is occurring at this instant? Yeah. And then really tune in and figure out exactly what that sense data is. And then watch and analyze how your mind goes from that tactile sensation to, and the feeling of it's unpleasant, to the thought this is unpleasant, to I don't like it, to I've got to move, to I'm going to be permanently crippled if I don't, to, I don't care if this disturbs the person sitting next to me, to I don't like it here anyway, to I'm going down the hill. Yeah, no, it's very interesting to just watch, and especially that thing, the sense perception to the thought. Why do I say I've got to move? And what is this fear? This fear that comes, if I don't move, what's going to happen? Where did that come from?
There's a comment from Kelsan Soba. We don't actually feel anything. It's all neurons firing.
We don't actually feel anything. It's all neurons firing. So it is all neurons firing, but if you don't feel anything, then that means that you don't have pleasure and pain in your body.
I don't understand what that person is saying.
But, well, I do. Because if you really look at it, it's just neurons firing. So why, from neurons firing, do we get a sensation? It's an interesting question, isn't it? Why, from certain blips of electricity, or whatever's going on, do we get just the sensation of, yellow or tired or pain or pleasure? Yeah, it's quite interesting, because it is just the neurons firing. Mm-hmm. But how quickly, watch how quickly all this develops. And especially, because we're going to be doing mindfulness of the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. So to do this, we have to be able to discriminate between these. So if you're being mindful of your body and you can't tell what your body is, yeah, then it's hard. And it's true, when we're doing mindfulness of the body, we'll be looking at all the different organs, and we'll be imagining what they look like. So part of it is conceptual. It's not just direct perception when we're doing mindfulness of the body. Yeah. But then when we get to mindfulness of feelings, to separate the sense data from the pleasure and pain, from the thought, this is nice, this is not nice. And then how that leads to, I want more, or I don't want this, or I don't really care. And then how that creates karma. That's another whole chain to watch and observe in our own experience. Then we begin to understand how samsara occurs. Okay? So what I'm getting at is that what we're learning here in the Course is going to apply to your meditation. And your meditation on the four foundations, four establishments, is going to apply to the Lamrim that you've been studying. And it'll help you understand things that you've heard in the Lamrim. Okay? So what I actually had planned for today, okay, first of all, in our little thing that says valid and invalid cognizers, we're going to be making a lot of adjustable things. It should be reliable and unreliable cognizers. Okay, that should be the title. And then where it says non-deceptive, yeah, non-deceptive or incontrovertible, the last column. Okay, so it realizes its object. It induces certainty about the object, and it eliminates doubts regarding it. It has that kind of non-deceptive cognition has eliminated superimpositions with regard to its object. You have to cross out non-mistaken there and non-mistaken with regards to its appearing object. I don't think that's part of the definition. And then on the first page, number 1, where on the left column, where it says reliable cognizer, it should say reliable direct cognizer. When you go 2 down where it says sensory, then the last column where there's an X under mental cognizer, you need to cross that X out. Because sensory is certainly not a mental cognizer. And actually, we should reorder those 4 that are under reliable direct cognizer and to put actually it should be reliable sensory cognizer, because not all sensory cognizers are reliable ones. Okay, but in any case, the sensory and then the mental and then the self-cognizer should be 3rd, but I prefer to use the word apperception there instead of self-cognizer. And then D is yogic, direct perception.
Okay, but what did you do with B and C?
In the order of those 4 is sensory, mental, apperception, yogic.
Okay.
That's the order we're going through in the text. Okay? So those are the corrections so far. As you go through and study these and look at the definitions also, check them and see if things are right. Yeah. I was thinking it's good whenever to make handouts, put some mistakes in and see if, and see if people catch them. Then you know if people are really thinking about the material or not. Okay, so I want to review some of what we did and in the process of introduce some other things. First of all, the 7 cognizers that we're talking about. Yeah, we also talked about reliable cognizer, or as they translate it, how do they translate it, reliable cognizer for Satantrika? What's the correct? If we, actually, instead of reliable cognizer or valid, what should it be for Satantrika interpretation?
Non-mistaken. Non-mistaken.
When I said pramana is the word? New. Okay, so they call it prime cognizer. Yeah. So that would be how Satantrikas would translate it as, because for the pra in pramana, that's the Sanskrit word, for Satantrika they say it means new, and mana means to comprehend. To prasangika, pra means main. In other words, it understands its main object. Okay? Whereas in Satantrika, it's new. So it brings about a really different understanding here. And this pramana or prime cognizer, if we list the 7, it's not among the 7, but some of the 7 are prime cognizers and some aren't. So I'm just saying, don't get confused when we talk about prime cognizers, and then we talk about these other 7, and you're going to go, well, wait a minute, there's 8. It's rather that prime cognizer is a certain type of cognizer, and some direct perceptions, direct perceivers are prime, and some aren't, and some inferences are prime, and like subsequent cognizers of inferences aren't prime. Okay. So when we said that these are all knowers, so that eliminates sense powers as and here by sense powers we mean the subtle organs, that do the perception, we eliminate those as being prime cognizers, as some non-Buddhists say that they are. Okay. Then, when we say new, the new of pra, okay, it doesn't mean that the mind newly realizes something not realized by preceding moments of consciousness of a similar type. Okay? It doesn't mean that it's the first time I ever see red in my life, and that any of the other times I see red are not new. Okay? Because if it meant that it newly realizes something that has not been realized by a previous moment of consciousness of a similar type means, a consciousness of a similar type means if this is a visual consciousness by a previous moment of visual consciousness. Because if that were the case, then after one prime cognizer realizes something, another one never could be realized. So I would only have one prime cognizer of red in my entire life. And that's not the case. Okay? So it's like, if I'm looking over here, and then I turn to look at this, or I look at this, and then I say, oh, the first moment of that is red. Then I look at the carpeting, the first moment of that, of blue, that's also prime. Then I look back here, then I have another first moment of cognizing red that also is a prime cognizer. Okay? So new also doesn't mean that you realized a new object, because then all moments of a continuity would be new, because the object is always changing. Okay, so it doesn't mean when it say this is a prime cognizer that it's new, it doesn't mean that it's new because you're realizing a new object. Because if it meant that, then because the color red is changing moment by moment, then every moment I realized red, just looking at it right now, would be a prime cognizer. But that's not true. It's only the first moment that's the prime cognizer. You getting it? What I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay. So it means, what new means in prime cognizer, that it newly realizes its object by its own power, not through the force of a former or a previous prime cognizer which induces it. Okay? So if the first moment I look and I see red is a prime cognizer, the second moment when I'm looking like this, I'm also seeing red, that is not a prime cognizer. Because the second moment and third and fourth and 10th and so on of seeing red was induced by that first moment. So it's not prime because it isn't from its own power of like first looking and seeing that object. Okay? So looking and seeing red is different than thinking I'm seeing red. Thinking I'm seeing red is a conceptual consciousness. And so remember last time we were saying that first you have the sensory consciousness seeing red, then there's one brief moment of mental consciousness, and then there's thoughts about the red. At the same time you're thinking about the red, with your mental consciousness, your eye consciousness can still be looking at it. Okay? Yeah.
Jonathan is asking, how long do we have to look away from something to have another prime cognizer?
What was the, how do we have to, or what? How long? Just so that you're perceiving something else. Yeah.
So does that mean also that like a mental consciousness supersedes your eye consciousness or something like that? like you have, or maybe not your mental consciousness, but your thought of it, it kind of obstructs the sense.
Well, it depends. Does the thought obstruct the sense? Very often it does, because we start thinking about something and our eyes may still be looking at the same thing or hearing the same sound, but we're so involved in our thoughts that that sense perception becomes what we call an inattentive consciousness, inattentive cognizers, which is one of the 7. In other words, the object is appearing, but we're not ascertaining it because we're too stuck in our thoughts. Okay? So this also happens very often in our lives, doesn't it? Yeah, we have something happen, some sense data. We think about something, we get stuck in our thoughts, and then we don't hear what follows. Like if I say something at the beginning of this talk that annoys somebody, and then they're sitting there being annoyed. Why did she say that? Then I give the whole talk, and and they can't remember anything from it. Yeah, they heard the sound because they're in the room, but it was appearing but not ascertained. It was an inattentive consciousness because all the thoughts prevented us from paying attention to the sound of the rest of the talk. So we have that happen to us a lot, don't we? In different things. Yeah. And so often it leads to conflict, something happens, we have a thought about it, we get totally immersed in that thought. And the person goes on speaking, and what they're saying, if we were actually, if it weren't an inattentive consciousness, it would have cleared up all of our ruminating about it. But we're not even... the sense data isn't really going in because we're not even listening, even though the sound is there. Yeah.
This is I was talking about a while ago when we were studying this a little bit about this experience I had with my grandmother, where she was kind of yelling at me and my brother to clean the house, do this kind of thing, and I was so mad at her, and I was like, I was thinking she's evil, she's so mean, she's this, she's that, and she was yelling and yelling and yelling, and all of a sudden I heard something in her voice, and she was crying, and I was shocked. I was like, what is going on? And when I was thinking about it, when I was explaining this to people, I was like, what was happening, what I was seeing did not correlate with this mental image that I had of that she's evil, that she's wrong, that all of this, and I was like, what is going on? I couldn't even understand it really.
Yeah.
And it was like this thing that I was seeing like jolted me out of that kind of inattentiveness.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying one time when you were little, your grandma was yelling at you to clean up your room. I can see she wasn't always successful. I'm going to call her and tell her to yell some more. but yeah, she'll have to cry. But he got so involved in thinking she's evil and she's this and she's that, and then he's so hung up in his thoughts that at one point he was shocked to hear a sound that did not fit in with his thoughts, and to realize that sound was the sound of her crying, and that completely burst apart all of his thoughts. But it took you a long time to realize that she was crying, because you were so stuck in what you were thinking. She might have been crying for a while, and you didn't even hear it.
I'm talking to my mother, like, what's going on? And she was like, she hates yelling at you guys. And it was so strong.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she hated yelling at you. Yeah. I hate when I have to remind people to clean their rooms. I really, and to remind people of things, I really don't like it. So I can understand why she would be crying. Okay, so incontrovertible or non-deceptive, same meaning. And by the way, incontrovertible and unmistaken are not the same. Don't confuse them. Yeah, they have different meanings. So incontrovertible or non-deceptive means it's eliminated superimpositions with respect to its object. It's got at its object. So it's realized its object, it's ascertained its object. Okay? Now, let's go on. So realizing its object means that you've gotten at the object and the superimpositions have been removed. Okay, and the consciousnesses of these 7 that realize their object, we might want to even make another little column here. The ones that realize their object, okay, are direct perceivers. This isn't saying that every instance of a direct perceiver realizes its object, because, for example, an inattentive mind doesn't. But direct perceivers, inferences, and subsequent cognizers realize the objects, and the other 4 don't. Okay? So a subsequent cognizer realizes its object, but not through its own power, because they themselves don't remove the superimpositions. Okay? So my... okay, when I look at red and I see the red, I realize red, that cognizer knows it's red, it knows it isn't yellow or purple or something else. The first moment knows that, it realizes its object through its own power because it's the first moment looking at it. The subsequent cognizer is the second moment, third moment, anything after that. It also realizes red because it knows the red isn't another color, but it doesn't realize it through its own power, because it realizes the red through the power of the first moment. So this is why Tantrikas really emphasize the prime cognizer as something being new and fresh, because it's the first moment. So that's as far as we got. I was going to get a lot further today. Okay, but I hopefully the discussion was helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Questions from this time?
Okay.
Unmistaken, does that mean that the appearing and the observed objects are the same?
No, unmistaken means that it's not mistaken with respect to the appearing object. In other words, it's not a conceptual appearance.
Because the way it's written on one of these footnotes, it makes it sound like they're the same, and that makes sense to me.
Where?
In the main text.
Okay, can you find it?
Is it number 1? It is unmistaken in terms of its appearing and observed objects. There is no erroneous element in what is appearing to consciousnesses.
Because it seems like the appearing object and the observed object...
Oh, yeah, the observed object is the principal object.
Yeah.
Okay.
The observed object is the focal object.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're the same, right?
Right.
When it's unmistaken.
Yeah, and so here too, it's also referring to the apprehended object too.
And then my second question was, when we have, like, I'm on still this same paper by the Geshe, and so, for example, when they split something into a division, actually you answered it. We already decided that these 7 weren't every type It's just they divided it this way. But it seems like sometimes when they divide things, they're all-inclusive. Like say, for example, the sense direct perceivers are divided, they're 5. There's only 5 of them. There's only 5 possible. So you've got the whole
Right.
word I'm looking for. It's all
Yeah. But on mental direct perceiver, another way of looking at it, you could include apperception and yogic direct perception as types of mental direct perception, but here they're split out.
What I wondered about is this thing about indicated on this occasion and not indicated on
Okay, so indicated and not indicated, it's referring to the mental direct perceiver, okay? It's already split out. Yogic and made it another category. It's already split out apperception and made it another category, even though those are both mental direct perceivers. So then it's just left with a certain type of mental direct perceiver. What it refers to in this category is what we were talking about. What is not indicated is, for example, something like the superpowers, the super knowledges.
And those two are every type of those? And are those two inclusive of all types of mental direct perceivers?
Well, like I said, apperception and yogic are already separated out. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know, that they might be.
Yeah, I guess you can't really tell when they make these divisions if they're all inclusive or not.
Right.
Is what it boils down.
Right. And also in some of the things overlap too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Helpful. Yeah. I was trying to do that and I was just getting confused. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, actually, there's something quite interesting. We'll get to it next week. Remember, we went through the 3 possibilities for the mental direct perceiver and how it relates to the sensory direct perceiver. So I discovered some refutations for 2 of them and why they say it's the 3rd.
Oh, okay.
So we'll do that next week. Yeah. But see, what's interesting is that mental direct perceiver is also an inattentive consciousness. Okay? So, and inattentive is one of the 7. Yeah, because that one moment of a mental direct perceiver, we can't catch it. Yeah, we can't catch it. So, okay. So same homework assignment. Keep going with it.
Yeah.
Okay.